Catus. Maximus here, this time with a review of a couple snap-on tools. No, I don't do much snap-on stuff because usually it's out of my range, easiest way to put it. Although my favorite old-timer tool shop actually got a little collection of old snap-on stuff from a real millwright. Some of this is quite old. What we have here is a 15-inch sliding T-handle breaker bar, as well as a 15-inch, sometimes called hinge handle, spinner handle breaker bar. So the whole purpose of these is that you'd break the bolt and then go straight and then spin it out. Should mention, pretty much all snap-on tools have little markings such as this one, which indicates this is made in the 40s or 50s. This breaker bar here, we know that's like from the 90s or earlier or so, because it still has a serif font versus the newer sans serif font. But this is one of the few snap-on tools that has no date marking. I don't know if that was a government tool or what, but it is a carbon finish breaker bar. Really like it. Traditional snap-on design with this nice oversized round head. Nice large handle, which I don't think you can get knurled handles anymore. Maybe you can, but really like this breaker bar, and it's just a traditional design. I'll start off, I'll do most of the comparisons with the spinner handle breaker bar. We'll just do a small one here. One thing that Snap-on has done on this is they've set the ball bearings in quite deep. And I've actually had issues with these, such as the Craftsman, where the ball bearings will fall out. You'll just hit them, the head will slide into them enough times so the bearing just pops out, and it gets pretty annoying. So it looks like what Snap-on has done is they've accepted that a more recessed ball may beat up the head more when you slide the handle in, but it's less likely to fall out. The other actual nice aspect is you can see how far the handle sinks in. It's nearly flush, and pretty much none of them do that, you know. Williams, Right Tool, SK does it, but not, it seems about half the manufacturers you can just see versus this Craftsman how much lower profile it is, and actually the head's actually even a little bit larger. This was an upgrade to my 12-inch. This is actually a Cat, one of the only tools I have that actually says Cat on it. This is a Caterpillar. This was made by Proto for Caterpillar, and they kind of do an undercut here, so it has a similar feature, but still nowhere near as flush as the Snap-on, surprisingly enough. And even the SK, which does have a proper recess to try to get the handle to sink in, still pokes out a bit further, so I'm actually kind of surprised about that. Snap-on did do a pretty good job on this, and yeah, I did only pay $5. So who said all Snap-on tools are pretty expensive? Not always. I only paid $25 for this breaker bar, so I got some good pricing. I will say that I did pick up another Snap-on breaker bar, this little guy, which I believe is also from the 40s, maybe the 50s. And what I was noticing is that the really old ones here seem to be a bit heavier duty. They may be higher quality steel in the newer ones, but on this quarter-inch breaker bar, this is a quarter-inch drive, but the diameter of this, the base of the swivel head here, is over ½ an inch. It's really huge. So it'd be the size, it'd be like this ½ inch breaker bar having a nearly 1 inch wide base. So it doesn't seem to be nearly as overbuilt as the old Snap-on tools were. But once again, maybe they make that up for metallurgy. And yeah, I paid $10 for this and $5 for this, so who knows about that pricing. Anyway, let's do a few more comparisons of this spinner handle. Now, Snap-on's good quality, and a lot of people like to make comments on my channel like, oh my god, it's thinner because it uses much better steel. There just isn't that big of a difference in steels to where you might half the diameter of one alloy steel tool and have it be the same strength as something that's twice as thick. It's just, steels don't scale like that. Tool steels don't. It's actually surprising how similarly strong they are. And so probably the weakest steel, it would be the Icon 24-inch breaker bar. You can see how the Icon did go for more of a Snap-on style design with the big rounded base. Although the fork, I'll have to say, on the Icon, maybe is just a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit beefier on the Snap-on. You can see how they've, let me do it that way, they've moved the hole. The fork is only broached just as deep as it needs to hold this. So there is a little bit more of a gap, and it just means that the forks are a little bit longer. So that might be one reason why these Icons and even the Pittsburghs are holding up so well. There's actually a lot of YouTube videos of Icon versus Snap-on, etc. And as far as bending forks, that may be part of the deal. We do have a selection of other ones here, like an SK. We have a Proto here. I've got a German-made Hozet, We've got my favorite Armstrong, and then we do have a Williams. This is a Williams, I believe, that was made before Snap-on bought them. Snap-on bought Williams in the 90s. And what I will say is I like the fact that the Williams has just a bit more aggressive and deeper knurling than the Snap-on. I do like this knurling on the Snap-on as well, but it is a bit fine. I would have liked it to be a bit more coarse. And as far as the head, the Williams is just a little bit more elegant. I would actually say that this Snap-on is going to be a little bit stronger than the Williams. But the Williams just has a real nice smooth design overall, nice smooth tapers, and I did like that versus this Snap-on counterpart. And then as far as what I'm pretty sure it's better, I'm pretty sure that this breaker bar is going to be better than this Proto. This is a more recent Proto, but you can see that the Proto head actually looks nearly identical in dimensions to the Snap-on, so maybe they're about the same, although the beam on this Snap-on does look like it's just a little bit thicker than the Proto, so I would say it's better than that. As far as the old SK, a lot of people aren't going to argue that SK uses inferior quality steels, but I'd have to say that the SK has a pretty beefy head on there, that's for sure. But the base of this anvil just doesn't seem quite the same. And so that's really kind of the point of it, is that the higher quality breaker bars, at least in my opinion, just have really strong forks on them to prevent them from wanting to splay out. And if the forks stay straight, since I'm talking about the Snap-on, if the forks, the more rigid the forks are, they're going to stay straighter, so that when you're putting torque on it, it's actually applying force to each side of this head, rather than twisting force on the actual retention pin itself, and that's what makes them stronger. And that's why I always thought Snap-on used this big round design, is just to give more surface area for that purpose, and other manufacturers do follow along with that. I do like this. This is my Armstrong 12918, and this is one of my favorites just because it has just a Super Duty head on it. It's just super thick. They threw a ton of steel at it. The fork is really shallow, so it has really rigid tanks. Just a Super Duty breaker bar. And so yeah, I would, unless you're in the Snap-on aficionado, I'd recommend one of these Armstrongs over the Snap-on itself. Just the one thing is it's hard to find industrial carbon finish breaker bars, and so that's kind of the neat thing about this Snap-on. And I just wanted to compare it to some various others, at least observationally, and design considerations. It still is something I like. I really like old school knurled large handle breaker bars, and so this is going to be something that's going to be pretty sweet to add to the collection. I'm glad to have shared it with you all. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.